Hi guys, how are you today? Welcome back to my channel Adventures in America. If you are new to my channel, my name is Jocelyn and I'm a dual citizen of the United States and the Philippines. Before we get started, please like this video, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. I always welcome new subscribers. If you recently traveled in the Philippines, please post your travel experience and tell us what you think about the travel restrictions. And also, if you have any other questions or comments, please post them down below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Number 1, Filipinos have the right to travel. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you are a Filipino and you have a valid Philippine passport that is valid for at least 6 months or beyond, you can travel in the Philippines. You have the unrestricted right to stay indefinitely as well. If you are a Filipino citizen and also a dual citizen as well, you can travel in the Philippines even without a Philippine passport. You can travel based on your foreign passport plus your dual citizenship documents. Another classification of passengers are balikbayans. If you are a former Filipino citizen, for example, you have been naturalized as a US citizen, you can still travel in the Philippines based on the Balikbayan Visa program. So what is the Balikbayan Visa program? Once you arrive in the Philippines, you can avail of the 1-year visa-free privileges of staying in the Philippines. You do not need an entry visa to travel. However, for former Filipino citizens, you still need to prove that you are a former Filipino, such as presenting an old Philippine passport or a Philippine birth certificate. The next category are foreigners, but not all foreigners can travel in the Philippines. For example, if you are a foreign spouse of a Filipino national, you can travel in 2 ways. First, if your spouse is in the Philippines, you need an entry visa or a tourist visa from abroad before traveling. However, if you are a foreign spouse and your Filipino national spouse is also traveling with you, so that means you are traveling together, that foreign spouse do not need an entry visa abroad because you can avail of the Balikbayan Visa. The Balikbayan Visa can extend to immediate family members such as a foreign spouse or a foreign child or children. Please take note that the marriage between the foreign spouse and then the Filipino national must be valid according to the laws of the Philippines. And also, the marriage must be registered abroad or must be reported abroad through a form that needs to be filled out. It's called report of marriage. You must report the marriage between the foreign spouse and the Filipino spouse abroad if both of you are living abroad. However, if the Filipino spouse is in the Philippines, make sure that the report of marriage has been submitted either to the Department of Foreign Affairs or to the Philippine Consulate abroad, depending on your residence at the time of your marriage. Also, foreign nationals who have children in the Philippines, as long as those children are in the Philippines at the date of the intended travel, then the foreign national can travel. However, you needed to secure an entry visa abroad before traveling. Allowed to enter. The list includes foreigners with valid 9G working visas, 9F student visas, special visa for employment generation or SVEG, and special investors residence visa or SIRV under Executive Order number 63 may now enter the country. Also, this date of March 20, 2020 has been removed. So that means if the visa has been issued prior or after May 20, 2020, then those foreign nationals can now enter the Philippines. Filipino foreign seafarers with 9C visa Also, foreign nationals in possession of valid existing visas. Now, all of these eligible passengers must comply with the 4 conditions of the Interagency Task Force. I'm going to enumerate these 4 conditions. Must have a valid and existing visa at the time of entry unless otherwise stated, with pre-booked accredited quarantine facility hotel for at least 6 nights at the traveler's expense. Must undergo PCR test on the 6th day of quarantine. Non-overseas Filipino workers and non-Filipinos on Philippine airline flights arriving in Manila will be swabbed by the Toxicare Molecular Diagnostics Laboratory. And also the last condition is subject to the maximum capacity of inbound passengers as set by the National Task Force for COVID-19. Also, please take note that there are 3 different ports of entry in the Philippines: Manila, Clark, and Cebu, and their requirements are different. Also, airlines may have additional requirements before traveling in the Philippines. For example, some airlines in the USA require a negative test before boarding. So that means you already have a negative test before even arriving in the Philippines. And once you arrive in the Philippines, you will still have to undergo the swab test and quarantine. For overseas Filipino workers, please register with the OASIS program of the OWA. You can avail of the free accommodation, free food, transportation, and also the free swab test as long as you register online to avail of these services for workers abroad. For all the other passengers, not overseas Filipino workers, then you must pay for your own hotel accommodation. It is required that you pre-book a hotel, and also there is a swab test on the 6th day. However, there is a resolution issued by the task force. It's resolution number 101, and it was issued on February 26, 2021, and it is the health protocols for domestic travelers. I'm going to go ahead and go over the full text so you may not be confused, and I'm also going to post the link below so you will be aware of all the wordings of this resolution, and you can print it and present it when you travel domestically. Here's the full text of Resolution 101. That the IATF approves the Uniform Travel Protocols for Land, Air, and Sea of the Department of the Interior and Local Government, crafted in close coordination with the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines, League of Provinces of the Philippines, and League of Municipalities of the Philippines, and the League of Cities of the Philippines. Minimum public health standards. Minimum public health standards, which include physical distancing, hand hygiene, cough etiquette, and wearing of face masks and face shields, among others, shall be strictly implemented across all settings, and clinical and exposure assessment shall be strictly implemented in all ports of entry and exit to ensure that only asymptomatic, non-close contact individuals are allowed to travel or enter the local government unit of destination. Health assessment of passengers supervised by medical doctors shall be mandatory upon entry in the port terminal and exit at point of destination. Let's go on testing and quarantine. Testing shall not be mandatory for traveler except if the local government unit of destination or the province with respect to their municipalities and component cities and highly urbanized cities and independent component cities will require testing as a requirement prior to travel, and such shall be limited to RT-PCR test. And no traveler shall be required to undergo quarantine rules unless they exhibit symptoms upon arrival at the LGU of destination. And on documentary requirements, travel authority issued by Joint Task Force, COVID Shield, and health certificates shall no longer be required. Authorized persons outside of residence or APORs from national government agencies and their attached agencies must provide their identification card, travel order, and travel itinerary, and must pass symptom screening at ports of entry and exit pursuant to IATF Resolution 98A issued on February 4, 2021. Communication Technology Solutions. The Safe, Swift, and Smart Passage, or SPAS, travel management of the Department of Science and Technology shall be institutionalized as the one-stop shop application communication for travelers. For this purpose, a focal person from the province with respect to their municipalities and component cities and from HUCs and ICCs shall be assigned. And the StaySafe.PH system shall be utilized as the primary contact tracing system. Trace app for airports and such other existing contact tracing applications must be integrated with the StaySafe.PH system following IATF Resolution number 85 issued on November 25, 2020. Okay, on ports or terminals. Number 1, all terminals must have assigned sufficient quarantine isolation facilities. Number 2, all ports and terminals shall put in place a referral system wherein travelers who become asymptomatic shall be transferred to quarantine isolation facilities to enable the Bureau of Quarantine for airport or local health officials in case of LGUs to take over. For the National Capital Region, all buses bound for provinces shall be required to use the Integrated Terminal Exchange as the central hub for transportation. No bus company or public transport shall be allowed use of their private terminals. And at their option, LGUs may provide transportation for all travelers who are transiting from one LGU to another in cases of arrivals at air and seaports to their endpoint destinations. I'm going to post all the links and resources below in my description so you will have a good reference once you travel. One of the apps is the Trace app, which is a mobile application that was implemented effective November 28, 2020. The Trace app will be used by all Philippine ports and terminals to automate contact tracing. Another app is the SPAS, which was developed by the Department of Science and Technology in the Philippines, and it is a travel management system for a hassle-free journey for domestic travelers during the pandemic. Another app that will be used is the StaySafe.PH, and I'm going to send the link below in my description regarding that app or website. What are the minimum health standards when traveling? First, you needed to wear a face mask and a face shield, so both of them together before boarding the plane. Number 2, you needed to download the Trace mobile application. I'm going to send the link below. Also, it has been effective since November 28, 2020. The Trace app will help in the automation of the contact tracing. Number 3, you needed to register for case investigation form. This case investigation form depends whether you are an overseas Filipino worker or if you are flying through Philippine Airlines or other foreign airlines. So there is a separate case investigation form for PAL passengers, and I'm going to send the link below. For all other foreign airlines, you needed to register for PAD Lab. Also, the other minimum health standards are mandatory temperature checks and mandatory physical distancing. Most frequently asked question on my video is that, are foreign tourists allowed in the Philippines? The answer is no. The Philippines has not opened up for tourism purposes. However, there are only a few number of limited foreign nationals who can travel in the Philippines. I already made a video. You can check out my other videos as well. Another question that I encountered is that, when is Philippines going to open for tourism? The answer is that I don't know yet. However, there are criteria to open. First, the entire Philippines must be placed under the most lenient community quarantine, and it is the modified general community quarantine. Once the entire Philippines has been placed under MGCQ, then there is a huge possibility that foreign tourists will be allowed to enter as well. Number 2, vaccination rollout. It has been in the news that Philippines has received the first delivery of vaccines. However, there is uncertainty regarding the vaccine rollout for the whole population. Next question. Is a negative test required before flying to the Philippines? The answer is that it depends. There are some airlines abroad that require a negative test 72 hours before boarding. So if your airline requires you to have a negative test before boarding, and sometimes in other countries it is free, then go ahead and get that negative test. And also, once you arrive in the Philippines, you will still have to undergo another COVID test, but it is on the 6th day of your arrival under the current rules. So it doesn't matter whether you have a negative test abroad or you haven't taken a test, but once you arrive in the Philippines, you will always be mandated to take the COVID test on the 6th day. Another question is that why you should take a swab test in the Philippines. Taking a COVID-19 RT-PCR test is a requirement of the Philippine government for all arriving international passengers. Starting February 1, 2021, passengers shall be tested on the 6th day of their quarantine stay, and day 1 starts on the day of the passenger's arrival. This comes to the next question. Are children required to take the swab test? Children, including infants, are required to undergo the RT-PCR test on the 6th day of their quarantine stay. They must also complete the registration process and pay a separate testing fee. For minimized discomfort, infants will be swabbed through the mouth. This is one of the most frequently asked questions. If I'm already vaccinated, do I still need to undergo swab testing or quarantine? Passengers, regardless of vaccination status, are still required to undergo respective testing and quarantine as is specified by the Philippine Interagency Task Force on the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases. Another question, is the swab test free? Only non-overseas Filipino workers are required to pay the COVID test. The test is free for overseas Filipino workers whether they arrive in Manila, Cebu, or Clark. For non-overseas Filipino workers arriving in Manila, the test fee is 4,000 pesos and payment can be made via cash, card, Alipay, WeChat Pay, GCash, and PayPal. Currency exchange booths are available inside the terminal. For non-overseas Filipino workers arriving in Cebu, the test fee is 4,100 pesos. Payment can be made via cash, either in Philippine pesos or US dollars, or credit card, Visa. Currency exchange booths are available inside the terminal. For non-overseas Filipino workers arriving in Clark, the test fee is 4,000 pesos. Payment can be made in cash, and currency exchange is available at the terminal. Next question. What can I do during my quarantine at the hotel? We encourage everyone to stay safe by staying inside their rooms and while waiting for their scheduled test and release of results. Certain facilities of your hotel may be open or closed depending on their quarantine and safety protocols. Also, there were questions that were posted asking if the hotels would allow the passengers to pick out their food outside the room or get it from a restaurant. I'm not sure if all hotels will require you or allow you to get your own food, or if you can request it to be delivered, there might be extra charges for those services. So it really depends on the hotel protocols. Okay, the next question is that can families who travel together stay together in one hotel room? And also there are questions about married couples or engaged couples. So let's find out the actual rule on this. In compliance with Philippine regulations, only one person is allowed per room, except the following: families with minor children below 18 years old. If the family has 2 or more adult members, only one adult can stay with the minor children. Also, a person with disability and his or her companion, only one adult companion is allowed, and travelers with medical emergencies. Engaged and married travelers are not allowed to stay together in one hotel room. A waiver for special cases is available upon arrival for other exemptions not stated above, subject to the approval of the Philippine Bureau of Quarantine. How many days are required to be pre-booked for quarantine before the swab test? The rules require that you needed to pre-book at least 7 nights. And also you needed to shoulder the expenses for these quarantine facilities. And these facilities must be accredited by the Bureau of Quarantine or the Department of Tourism. Now, what are the requirements while on quarantine? First, you needed the airline or bus ticket. Another is the acceptance letter from the local government unit of your final destination. And the third one is a travel pass or authority from the Philippine National Police. Also, after your first 7 days and you get a negative test, now you needed to report to your local government unit. And the delay in reporting can be grounds for you to be subjected to another 14 days of quarantine. So upon arrival at your destination, report to your barangay health officials. And now you can proceed with your home quarantine. Here are the exit rules from the Philippines. First, let's talk about the minimum health protocols when departing the Philippines. You needed to wear a face mask and a face shield, and you needed to register through the Trace app mobile application. And also, if you are a passenger of Philippine Airlines, you needed to fill out the passenger profile information at least 5 days before departure. If you are departing through any other airlines, please contact the specific airline regarding the departure requirements. There are steps that must be accomplished before departure. First, if you are a passenger of PAL, register and fill out the passenger information form at least 5 days before departure. And second, secure the necessary travel and health insurance or documents, including COVID-19 testing for the country of destination. If you are missing any of these requirements, you will be denied boarding. Number 4, passengers are expected to arrive at the airport at least 4 hours before departure time in Manila. How much is the COVID test at Philippine Airlines Testing Center? RT-PCR tests cost 3,300 pesos with results released in 24 hours, and antigen tests cost 700 pesos with results released in 30 minutes. You may pay in cash, card, GCash, PayPal, WeChat Pay, or Alipay on the day of your test. RT-PCR tests for senior citizen and persons with disability can be discounted when you apply for a discount. Let's talk about the eligible passengers for departure from the Philippines. There are different categories of passengers, so make sure that you familiarize yourself with all the requirements depending on the type of passenger. Here are the requirements for overseas Filipino workers. Philippine passport, required travel and health documents as specified by the destination, Bureau of Immigration declaration of acknowledging the risks involved in traveling. Also, registration to Philippine Airlines if you are a passenger. You needed to secure the passenger profile and health declaration form as early as 5 days before departure. I'm also going to send the link below in my description. Type of passengers are students enrolled abroad or those who are participants or visitors in exchange program. The documents are passport, required travel and health documents as specified by the destination, Bureau of Immigration declaration of risks involved in traveling, and registration to PAL, passenger profile and health declaration form as early as 5 days before departure. The third type of passengers are citizens or permanent residents of foreign jurisdiction. The requirements needed are passport, required travel and health documents as specified by the destination, and travel pass effective March 1st, 2021. Other categories of foreign nationals. Also, passport, required travel and health documents, and also travel pass starting March 1st, 2021. Talk about Filipinos on non-essential travel. Philippine passport, required travel and health documents as specified by the destination, confirmed round-trip ticket, travel and health insurance to cover travel disruptions, and hospitalization in case of COVID-19 infections during their allowable period of stay abroad. Also, Bureau of Immigration declaration of acknowledging the risks involved in traveling. And also, if you are a PAL passenger, submit the passenger profile and health declaration form as early as 5 days before departure. Last category of passengers are Filipinos leaving for abroad due to medical, work, or essential reasons. The requirements are passport, supporting documents, and medical requirements required by the destination country, Bureau of Immigration declaration of acknowledging the risks involved in traveling, and registration to the PAL. If you are a PAL passenger, you need to submit the profile and health declaration as early as 5 days before departure. Thank you guys for watching, and if you have any other questions or comments, please post them down below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Also, if you recently traveled in the Philippines, please share your travel experience so we may be aware of what is going on. And before you forget, please like and subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. I hope everyone is staying safe and have a great day.